Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Ryan Tigey, back in action, live in front of a camera and a microphone. Not at the normal studio today, but got my mini mic here. Bear with me, but definitely want to get in front of some things that we see coming up on Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys come to the San Francisco 49ers. It's going to be a hell of a battle. Some things I think we need to be thinking about, looking at, and we'll go through it all right now. So let's get it going. Couple things that I first want to take a look at. I'm going to go through realistically 3 topics. Again, as always, keep it short and sweet and to the point. The Dallas defense. So obviously the Dallas roster, pretty stacked top to bottom, both sides of the ball. But the defense is obviously the one that sticks out when we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys. They are currently 3-1. And when you look at it just from a holistic view of the Dallas Cowboys, the weakness definitely resides more with the offense versus the defense. The defense is number one, essentially in every metric. So per usual, Dan Quinn, he's got those boys buzzing on the defensive side of the ball. Could the injury of Trey Diggs creep up in this game when they're playing a pound for pound best offense in the NFL? I think it potentially might. When I was taking a look at the Dallas Cowboys specifically, I wanted to get an idea to see, I know that there's a lot of players from last year that were on the team this year. What's that looking like? Are they doing anything different? Is there anything that sticks out? Well, when I take a look at some of the numbers behind the Dallas Cowboys, one thing that immediately stuck out to me, and I'm pretty sure it's obvious to everyone, the teams they've played against and have won, they're 3-1, obviously. The teams they beat, the quarterbacks they faced, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, and Zach Wilson. Those aren't legit quarterbacks. Those are guys, for the most part, actually fucking stink, and their teams aren't that great around them. And I think that's something that essentially potentially has the numbers a little bit skewed in Dallas's favor. Nonetheless, still to say they're a good ball club, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. I have to address it. I've seen a lot of news coming around about the national media, how fucking juiced everyone gets for this game, which I'm super juiced as well. But the national media is doing their national media thing on these debate shows where they just ask the most absurd questions and try to refute one another, when in reality, we're still in week 5. This is a week 5 game. There's 17 games in the season. So I think they blow a lot of stuff out of proportion. One of the things that I saw, which was pretty funny, was the Trey Lance information or given insight into the 49ers. What is Trey Lance going to tell them? A couple things. Being a 49er fan myself, yes, does Trey Lance know our offense? For sure. But one thing people aren't talking about, Dan Quinn hired Kyle Shanahan when they were at the Falcons. So you don't think Dan Quinn knows Kyle Shanahan, whose offense has been the same ever since he's been a play caller? Yeah, a few wrinkles here and there. But I would almost be sure to say that Dan Quinn potentially knows more than Trey Lance does, considering the amount of time that Trey Lance was in the building, let alone actually taking snaps, taking reps in the meetings. Obviously, he did a lot of rehab last year with his broken leg. So, that's number one. These teams know each other. Kyle Shanahan hasn't changed much in terms of play call, in terms of scheme. All that is relatively the same. So how much insight can Trey really give? Yeah, he may be able to say, hey, the read is this progression in this particular play. But again, I like to reiterate, they have one formation can combine into 50 different routes. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And, another thing to think about that's just kind of obvious to me as a Niner fan is we had a different offense for Trey Lance. There was a lot more quarterback runs. We were trying to take advantage of his mobility, or what we thought was mobility, so Trey Lance giving insight and all that kind of shit like that, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And the Niners have Anthony Brown, DB, spent 7 seasons with Dallas. So I think if we wanted to get inside as well too, I bet almost every game, when you just look across the NFL, there are players that had played on that team that they're playing against. So that's not really something I think is a big deal whatsoever. It's a good narrative. It's a good story. I'm sure Trey Lance definitely will get some cameos when the game is happening Sunday Night Football. But to the fans out there, if you're going to the game, if you want to catch Trey Lance, better get there early. But Here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say about answering the question of Trey Lance giving him valuable insight.
Trey Lance realistically reveal to the Cowboys about your offense?
I mean, as much as most coaches can. I mean, you can see the plays on tape. You can explain what we look at and stuff like that, which usually you can when you can stack up a lot of tape over years, and we've been here for a while and previous. So hopefully he's talking to them all the time and making them focus totally on that instead of the simple stuff of watching the tape.
So I think that sums it up. Pretty good stuff. I think they're looking forward to this game. Shanahan clearly ain't worried about it. Again, the Dan Quinn, Kyle Shanahan relationship goes way further back, specifically when they're Atlanta. So nothing big there for me. One other thing, as we're just on the topic of Dallas here, is the fact that there's still very much similarities to this year's team versus last year's team. And what I've noticed, and they haven't really been tested except for Arizona, which obviously they lost that game. Dallas dominates with a lead. When their defensive line gets to pin their ears back, rush the quarterbacks, they know it's going to be a pass. That's when they dominate. That's why their defense just has so many turnovers. Shout out, I got them on my fantasy. And that's when Dak plays free. They run the ball a little bit more to obviously take time away from the clock. And on the flip side of that, when it's a competitive game, they have shown that they, more times than not, at least in big spots and big games, like this exact game, Niners versus the Cowboys, they fold under that pressure. Or maybe not fold under that pressure, but they historically lose those games in those types of situations. So I think, and I'll talk about keys to the game in a little bit later, but I think that's a big one. Keeping the game close, keeping the game competitive, which I think it will be, and see which team comes out on top. All right. Topic 2, the differences between the 49er team this year versus the 49er team last year. Yes, we have a lot of the same players, a lot of the same staff, literally identical scheme on both sides of the ball. But when I'm looking at it, the offense is buzzing for the Niners right now. Absolutely buzzing. They're putting up 30 plus points a game, which is in the first 4 weeks, which is actually it broke a San Francisco 49er team record with 30 plus points per game. Brock Purdy has no turnovers, which is huge. And we haven't played I think we've played good on defense, not great. And I think when it's primetime game, you hear all the players talk about it. When the lights are on them, when everybody's watching, this is the time where they like to come in and dominate. And I think this could potentially be a big statement game. Also, team style, still the same. It is physical, punch you in the mouth. And it's not just punch you once. It is punch you until you're knocked the fuck out on the ground.
You got knocked the fuck out, man!
So get ready for a physical game. Obviously, Dallas is expecting that, and they're a physical team and potentially will match that. But again, we got physicality on all sides of the ball. There are some absolute dogs, all pros, pro bowlers, just absolute fucking men. And the Cowboys better be ready for it because they're going to come out swinging, and they're going to come out swinging immediately. Some breaking news. The 49ers just announced they traded for Randy Gregory, outside linebacker for most recently the Denver Broncos. I believe he had a stint in Dallas as well too. That is a huge piece for the San Francisco 49ers because now we officially have another piece of that already stacked defensive line, and he specifically can be opposite on the edge of Nick Bosa. So back to the difference between this year's team and last year's team. I think without question, one of those biggest differences is the 49ers hitting deep shots, moving and throwing, completing, passing the ball down the field. Historically, since Kyle Shanahan's tenure, since 2017, throwing the ball deep has been something they have lacked. They didn't really throw fade routes because Jimmy G wasn't the best at those. We had players to do it on the outside. It was always the quarterback kind of hindering that from ever happening. So that's why you would see a lot of short passes in the middle, let the playmakers make plays. Obviously, we got a whole bunch of dudes that just crush it with yards after contact. So that is something that has changed, and we have seen it vividly over the past 4 weeks. Brock Purdy consistently hitting the deep ball. And his primary target, Brandon Ayuk, BA. BA has been an absolute stud this year. He has raised his game to another level. He is playing all pro without question. being a dominant wide receiver one. Just last week he had 148 yards, and he has over 300 yards already, and that's missing one game. So he's only played 3 games. I believe CeeDee Lamb has, middle high 200s. Ayuk has over 300, and he's played 3 games. And a lot of that is coming from Brock Purdy being his decisive sweet ass that he is, and hitting BA deep over, whether it's a back shoulder fade, whether it's a post, whether it's one of those deep over routes that we love to run. He has been hitting those and hitting those consistently, which has shown up. And that is a major, major difference this year versus last year. And when you take that into consideration, and as the Cowboys are breaking down film, that's something that they can't ignore. That's something the Cowboys can't ignore. They will have to scheme, and they will have to watch out for that, which is going to cause potential hesitation to open up other things, whether it's on the deep shot or leaving more of the middle open. I can't tell you how big that is that the 49ers now have that in their offensive arsenal of hitting deep shots, hitting consistently, and it's been beautiful. The last thing I'll say about just the BA Brock Purdy connection is the 17 receptions BA has had, they have either gone for first downs or touchdowns, all 17. So that right there says a little bit in terms of what we're working with when it comes to the BA Brock Purdy connection. Also, when I was looking around, just kind of seeing where the league is as a whole in terms of players, the 2 highest overall graded NFL players currently right now, according to PFF, is Nick Bosa and Brandon Ayuk, both over the 90s. So they're the 2 highest players overall in the NFL reside with San Francisco. Let's go a little bit further. When you look at position by position, the 49ers have 4 players who all lead their position with highest graded. BA, Bosa, the Gorilla Trent Williams, and Christian McCaffrey, who has been fucking balling. If you live under a rock, you may not have seen it. Watch Christian McCaffrey highlights. CMC's been a dog, and he ain't fucking slowing down. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And I feel like I just got to say it because I've heard some media talk about it, that, Cowboys, with how good their defense has been playing, it's been getting a little bit overlooked of Bosa. Now, obviously, Bosa was a holdout, so he wasn't in training camp. He is starting to roll. He's been playing absolutely fantastic. And again, that's with no training camp. He is currently second in the NFL, leading in total pressures with 97. Third, Micah Parsons with 95 pressures. So don't overlook Bosa. Every team he's gone against so far this year, they have done everything in terms of throwing an extra body at him, taking on double teams, even sometimes triple teams. He's still getting there with pressure, and it leaves other guys open with the one-on-one, most specifically Javon Hargrave. The Gravedigger, that has been a massive addition, second to none next to Christian McCaffrey's addition has been Javon Hargrave. That guy has been an absolute fucking beast, a monster in the middle. He's been playing phenomenal. So that's something else that different. Although team, scheme, staff, players, relatively the same. One big addition, and he's been making his mark felt and seen, Javon Hargrave. So be on the lookout for that guy. And then when you look at the team, again, just kind of from an overall perspective, one of the big things is no one was talking about it, because I get it. Brock Purdy was drafted in the late rounds. I've already talked about this ad nauseum, so I'm not going to go into what everyone already says about him. Can he keep doing it, etc. Brock Purdy is taking the traditional second-year leap. Everyone keeps saying, can he continue to do it? He's been ascending. He's been taking that second-year leap. The guy has been more decisive than ever, been more accurate than ever, been hitting more consistently deep balls with not just one player like BA. He's been scattering it over the field, connecting with CMC, Debo, Juan Jennings, Ray McLeod, you name it. He's been getting the ball. And of course, George Kittle. He's been doing it. He's been doing it consistently, decisively, and he has the best anticipation throws I have seen in quite some time, let alone from a second-year quarterback. He has been playing phenomenal. And, what people don't like to mention, everyone can use stats in their favor. Well, currently, if you guys want some stats here to make it a little bit more solidified for you, he is currently on pace throwing more yards than Aaron Rodgers' MVP years. Brock Purdy is on pace to throw more yards than Aaron Rodgers did in his MVP year in 2020 and 2021. He's also rushed for more touchdowns already than Lamar Jackson did in his MVP year back in 2019. And his current completion percentage is higher than any MVP winner as it stands today. So there's some three fun little stats in my favor about why Brock Purdy is the motherfucking truth. And it should go without saying, but if Trey Lance was on the Niners putting up the numbers Brock Purdy has, oh my God, he would be looked at as potentially the best quarterback in the NFL. The next one, you know, under the superstars of like a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. I think it's kind of bullshit. He's not getting the recognition, and it's more talked about like, can he keep doing it versus how much better is this guy going to get? Because he's only ascending, and it's fun as hell to watch. Topic 3, keys to the matchup. So this will be fun because Dallas's defense is the second best in passing yards they allow per game. However, they're 16th in the NFL of rushing yards on average that they give up per game at 111. The Niners defense is the opposite. They're 17th in passing yards allowed per game, but they're third in rushing, only allowing 66 yards per game. So that is going to be awesome to watch. I was actually surprised to see that by Dallas. I thought they'd be more stout in the run, but missing Trayvon Diggs in a game like this could potentially hurt. That obviously sucks. I wish he was out in the field, but it is what it is. And I also will find it fascinating how much penalties will play into a factor. Because again, if you just look historically over the past couple of years, the Dallas Cowboys have had a lot more penalties, a lot more undisciplined, a lot more boneheaded plays than the 49ers, and it has helped quite significantly. So that is something to be kind of looked at as well too, as a takeaway for who potentially is going to have success in this game. Penalties. Hopefully there's not a lot, but at least in the past couple of years there have been. So step aside, refs, just let the boys play. The Niners' right side of their offensive line is the weakness, without question. That's where I think Parsons is going to line up. Although I understand he's banged up, I don't even think they're going to try Parsons on the left side. Why would you? When he's going against Trent Williams and Aaron Banks, who have been doing unbelievable this year. The right side of the 49ers offensive line is the weakness. And then on the other side of that token, the left side of the DB, the secondary, specifically corner and potentially nickel, depending on who's playing it. And that's another thing too. I don't know what they've been doing with our nickel corner. They keep switching in like a rotation of 3 different players, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. I just wish that Coach Wilkes, our defensive coordinator, would stick to going with the same guys so they can actually get in rhythm, but he keeps switching them around. He'll push Diamador Lenore inside and put Avery Thomas on the outside. And then what we saw last week, Avery Thomas gets burned on a deep pass and then also gets burned on a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Thankfully, we got some stud safeties back there to help clean things up. But that is something that I think is a big key for the Dallas Cowboys to have success against the 49ers. But again, it all depends on if Dak has enough time to throw the ball. And I know that the Dallas Cowboys finally got their offensive line back. All their starters are playing. And I know it's been the first time in quite some time, I believe. So how will that go? So when you're bringing guys back, does it take a little bit for them to get in the groove? I know that there's a lot of the offensive linemen has to be on the same page. Are they going to be able to do that? I don't know. Time will tell, but something to watch out for. So overall, in summary, I am juiced for this game. I was looking on Ticketmaster. Average ticket cost per game is $400 plus, which is kind of insane for a Week 5 NFL game. Regardless of which team wins, got to put things into perspective here, because let's be logical and not give in to the bullshit that you hear everywhere else. It is still a Week 5 NFL game. Whichever team loses, not the end of the world. Whichever team wins, great, not the end of the world. I think it will show and give indications of a good test, although still a little bit early into the league. Teams have now started to find their identity. And I think it's going to be an absolute dogfight, an absolute fist fight. And I can't fucking wait. Another historical matchup, Sunday Night Football. This is the first time they've actually played in a regular season primetime game since like the early 90s. I think the whole league is excited to see it. I think Raj, the commish, he'll be excited to watch it. And I know who I'll be rooting for. Let's fucking go Nanas. All right, y'all. Till next time. Catch you around. Peace.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex zone. Neighborhood all in your eardrum.